You're texting with a gal you just met off of Twitter, and when you actually ask her out on a date, she tells you she's actually in a polo queue and needs to check her schedule with her 2 boyfriends first. Hey everyone, Harris O'Malley from DrNerdLove.com, and this is Ask Dr. Nerdlove, made possible by my generous patrons at patreon.com/DrNerdlove. And I am here today to answer your questions about love, sex, dating, and self-improvement. If you've got a short dating advice question you'd like to have answered, send it to me at doc@drnerdlove.com or share it in the comments, and maybe you will have your question featured on here. This week's question comes from Alex, who asks, I keep hearing about toxic masculinity, but I never hear about what positive masculinity looks like, and I'm starting to think it just means acting like a chick. First of all, let's take about 20% off there, bud. Now, initially, my response was going to be to just point you to my episode on positive masculinity, which I have conveniently linked to in the show notes, or you can hit the thing in the corner to go check it out. But, alright Alex, let's actually talk about this for half a second. Because if we're being entirely honest, and God knows I try to be, a lot of the examples of positive masculinity, including the ones that I frequently refer to, are, if we're being generous, a little hard to live up to. If you were to look at the most popular examples of positive masculinity, you would be forgiven for thinking you have to be almost perfect in order to be a good man. Don't get me wrong, while I think that Steve Rogers makes for a great role model and an ideal for people to try to live up to, it's a little hard to ignore the fact that he's basically flawless. Okay, I guess his only real character flaw is that he just loves his buddy so much that he's willing to break international law for him. But honestly, isn't that just the logical extension of good friends help you move, real friends help you move bodies? And of course, he has the benefit of being, fictional, which helps. A lot of real-world examples aren't much better, though. Bob Ross and Fred Rogers may as well be the Buddha and Jesus, respectively. It's a little hard to imagine, say, Mr. Rogers having had a rough day, being a couple of beers in at the bar, and trying to figure out how to respond when some upcountry degen starts trying to muscle in on the woman that he's talking to. Meanwhile, other people we hold up as examples, from Terry Crews to the Fab Five from Queer Eye, have a certain, almost performative quality that can make their positivity feel scripted, even when it is coming from a real and legitimate place. But overall, if we look at any of these men, it can feel difficult to relate to them because, frankly, they feel like they are so far down the path to positive masculinity that it almost feels like there is no way that you could ever measure up. Which is why I think there is some value to studying some unexpected examples of positive masculinity. Dudes who have some flaws to them. People who screw up but are trying to learn and do better. And a great example of that comes from the show Letterkenny. So before we get into this, we're going to be talking about moments from a bunch of different seasons. So if that's something you're concerned with, consider this your spoiler warning. Part of what I like about Letterkenny is how often it will play with your expectations. Characters like Joint Boy, Tyson, Tanis, and others go from being antagonists to friends. Skids like Stewart actually get close to Wayne and the Hicks. And even characters that you might otherwise write off as one note get surprising levels of depth and care. Like our role model for this episode. But it's not who you think it might be. While Wayne seems like an obvious choice, he's also too fond of a scrap, bit of a poopy pants, and inflexibly old-fashioned in some ways. Squirrely Dan is a little closer, especially considering his work with his women's studies teacher, Professor Tricia. But he's not quite right either. And Daryl is, well...
Four-leaf clover, make a wish.
Wish you weren't so f***ing awkward, bud.
Oh, we're gonna get some mileage out of that. No, the prime example of positive masculinity that I like to point to from Letterkenny are Reilly and Jonesy.
Tarps off, boys. The flow in the snow, boys.
No. For real. At first glance, Reilly and Jonesy are the literal opposite of positive masculinity. They are a pair of jocks who are obsessed with sex and working out and believe that sleeves are bullshit. When we first meet them, they play at being ready to pick a fight with Wayne, toughest guy in Letterkenny, in order to try to prove who's really the biggest swinging dick on the farm, but in reality, they're too chicken to actually show up for a hockey game against the natives.
All we want to do is go inside, rip a couple of snap bombs, and then go home.
They can't stop cheating on their girlfriend, and they're incapable of hiding that fact. Their only ambition in life are big city slams and winning hockey games eventually. They're just a couple of bros who are about as sharp as a sack of wet mice. They've got one brain between two bodies. Put them together, and they're almost as intelligent as one person. And really, that dude, still kind of dumb. By all outward appearances, they are nipples deep in a stew of toxic masculinity, but it's because of their shortcomings, and oh boy do they have them, that they're actually a solid example of positive masculinity. It is easier to relate to them because, unlike the Rogerses or Bob Ross or Karamo Brown, they're a lot closer to folks you're likely to meet in your life. They're relatable because they're flawed and imperfect. They make mistakes, they screw up in significant ways that are far more relatable to someone who wants to do better. It's easier to look at Reilly and Jones and see yourself in them in the ways that they screw up than it is to see yourself in Steve Rogers. Captain America may be who we aspire to be, but Reilly and Jonesy are closer to who we currently are. That relatability is important because in a very real way, it gives us permission to look at them and see someone who is a lot like us. Not perfect, but trying their best. It is one thing to look up to someone like Bob Ross and admire them. It's another to feel like being Bob Ross is something you could actually accomplish. The fact that Reilly and Jonesy are more down to earth makes being a better man feel like it's actually within reach. And the fact that they're seemingly so drenched in toxic masculine tropes is what makes their non-toxic sides stand out so very clearly. The first example of the positive masculine sides of Reilly and Jonesy is their relationship with one another. They care for each other in a deep and abiding way. They are openly affectionate and supportive of one another, and not even with the fig leaf of no homo bro, but in the sense that this is just what friendships are. They genuinely love and care for one another and express it unreservedly with a surprising amount of platonic intimacy. Considering that we live in a time when wink wink nudge nudge jokes about Frodo and Sam or Cap and Bucky are still in the mainstream, two bros who are just bros who care for each other is almost shockingly refreshing.
You could cut the sexual tension over there with a knife. Give your balls a tug, tit.
In fact, their complete lack of concern for being seen as being a little too into each other, or other dudes, actually reaches the point of being almost bizarre. The fact that they are utterly unfazed by Dax and Ron's catcalling and hitting on them speaks to how secure they are in their sexuality and other people's perception of it.
I'll give you a different kind of clap on, boys. 4 pink pills and she's gone though, I promise.
Let's set up in Gretz's office, boys. Work my quiet zone.
Really, they're more offended that Dax and Ron don't find them attractive. Not because they're secretly hoping for some dirty dangle action in the steam room, but because, I mean, come on, they're pretty.
You seriously don't want to bang us, you f***ing liars?
Come crash my crease, showstopper.
Hell, the quality of Dax and Ron's chirping is what leads them to being friends. That is a level of security and confidence you don't find very often. Especially when you contrast it with how easily Shorzy can get under their skin.
Fuck you, Shorzy!
Incidentally, you wouldn't think I needed to say this, but yes, but it doesn't bother us when someone does it to us doesn't mean that catcalling and sexual harassment is okay. Just saying. What's especially significant is how their friendship and connection trumps jealousy and resentment. They have no problem being in what's functionally a polyamorous relationship with Katie. They're just a package deal, that's all. It's perfectly normal as far as they're concerned. Even after she decides that she would rather date Reilly exclusively, the only issue the two of them face that is a challenge to their friendship is that they miss each other because they don't get to hang out as often. They ask Katie to date both of them again, not out of resentment or some weird chasing Amy-esque desire to even things out, but because it's how they would have the best of both worlds. Their friendship and their fucking Rocket Boys. Hell, the fact that they can switch casual partners without even blinking is kind of impressive for a couple of straight jocks. By that same token, they have absolutely no reservation with being vulnerable with one another. They may have an issue with other people thinking they're chicken, especially when they come down with a nasty case of the native flu.
Schmelts have the native flu, boys.
Those aren't real things. I'm not checking the schedule.
But they're just as free with their vulnerable sides as they are with their affection.
I'm sick of playing hurt, buddy.
Are you hurt or are you injured, buddy?
This time is different. My feelings are hurt.
Your feelings are injured, bro.
For a couple of jocks, that's impressive. The idea that men, real men, don't let their emotions get the better of them and that pain don't hurt is deeply entrenched in our culture, especially sport culture. The fact that they're able to talk about those feelings freely with one another is a solid mark in their favor as a positive example of what men can be. What's even more impressive is how much they have each other's backs. Whether when one of them is down or when they're both down, because let's be honest, they're basically dumb Canadian Tomax and Zaymot, they work to prop each other up and find a solution. Granted, usually involving either their big city slams or bearing down and pushing past the plateau with a little chemical assistance, which isn't always the healthiest option, but hey, the point is that they're trying. That's actually important because the single biggest reason why Jonesy and Reilly are great examples of positive masculinity is that they are actually trying to do better. When we first meet them, they're a pair of sexist jock slackers who just want the rewards that come from being jocks without actually having to do anything to earn it. They, quite frankly, are dog both as hockey players and as people. But to their credit, they're well aware of their flaws and their shortcomings. Hell, they'll be the first ones to tell you that themselves. They've got a surprising level of self-awareness and actually decide to put in the work to improve. They commit to being better hockey players and better men and end up becoming legitimate stars in the Letterkenny hockey scene. In fact, they're willing to take things seriously enough that they're willing to give up dating the hottest woman in Letterkenny in the process because it interferes with their other ambitions. And they apply that same level of drive, commitment, and intensity to improve to pretty much everything, really. They want to do better, they want to help other people do better, even if it gets a little weird in the process.
Presenting my penis to my all-male teammates in hopes that they will accept me. Men having my penis called modest, but my all-male team further coming together as a result of seeing my penis.
But what's most significant is how often they make mistakes and how they respond to those mistakes. More often than not, what ends up happening is either they take that correction in stride or they correct themselves without even blinking.
Okay, girls.
Girls?
No, we mean women.
Yes, that is my bad. I am sorry. It is an old habit.
And while they both may be as sharp as a bowling ball, they clearly care about saying and doing the right thing. They may not know the right words and they may say the wrong thing at the wrong time, but as soon as they realize they're wrong, they'll try to fix it and not make the same mistake next time. Once they realize they've made a mistake, they very rarely make it a second time. It may take them a while to realize that it's a mistake in the first place.
Well, you know, the Chiefs is kind of not PC though, buddy.
We try to keep it, kind of in touch there.
And what's remarkable is that as dumb as they are, they've got hidden depths, ones that they are justifiably proud of. They know a surprising amount about literature and film. They've got a strong grasp of math and even some incredible insight into human psychology that, admittedly, they used to get laid.
Fuego.
A lot of girls go away to school with big expectations of fun and romance, but that doesn't always pan out. School's tough, bro. And they come home for Christmas break and big expectations of school and the big city are behind them, they realize, hey, Letterkenny's actually pretty sick.
And then we have sex with them.
But that's the whole point. The fact that they're actually positive examples of masculinity doesn't mean that they have to be plaster saints. It doesn't mean they have to swear off being a pair of fuckboy poonhounds whose lives revolve around reps, red rips, slams, beers, and bro time. Positive masculinity doesn't mean that you have to be perfect, nor does it mean being feminine or agender or avoiding all things that would be considered traditionally, culturally masculine. Reilly and Jonesy are as traditionally masculine as you might want to find. They're just not toxic. And that makes all the difference. So, that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks for tuning in. If you've got a question you want to have answered on here, share it in the comments. Maybe the question I will answer next time will be yours. And if you need an answer right away or you want a guaranteed answer, check out my private coaching options. The priority email service may be exactly what you need. Links are in the show notes, so go check it out. Meanwhile, follow me on Twitter at @DrNerdLove. Join NerdLove Academy at facebook.com/group/DrNerdLove. And as always, check out my other videos, hit the logo to subscribe, and I will see you here next time with more about love, sex, and dating. Later.